Hi everyone, Arabel here with Chic Innovator. I'd like to introduce you to my next guest, a very good friend and a 26-year talent industry superstar. His name is David Sanchez. He is the founder and owner of 10 Management Model and Talent Agency. He's a first-generation college graduate, and he's really made quite a name for himself here in Chicago. You may recognize him as the face of 900 North Michigan Shops. You'll get to hear his journey all the way from a small town in Oregon to now being at the forefront of the model and talent industry in the U.S. With a rockstar team of 6 members and more than 500 talented individuals across the nation, 10 Management has booked over 13,000 gigs, pumping more than $10 million into the art scene. So let's get into the interview with my very talented and very handsome good friend, David Sanchez. You're watching Chic Innovator. Stay tuned for fascinating topics, fascinating people that have style and are innovative. You're watching Chic Innovator. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. It's free.
Hi, I'm David Sanchez. I am the founder and owner of 10 Management. We are a model talent agency here in Chicago, Illinois.
So happy to have you
Hi.
here. Yeah.
Me too. I'm happy too.
Yeah. So welcome to Chic Innovator.
Thank you.
I'm excited because we've known each other for a long, long time now.
At least 15 years.
At least 15 years.
At least.
Yes, in this incredible fashion industry that is Chicago. And really, kind of, you're all over the country. I know I've gotten to go all over with this fashion industry. It's an industry I love very much. You know, we do Runway Latinx. I met you when I was co-founder.
And I've even walked on your runway before as a model.
And you walked on the runway. Actually, you walked on the runway and you've done a panel.
Yes.
Yeah, as well.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember that. What's interesting to me is I think my daughter introduced you, and she was really young, much younger,
that.
Right?
She's so poised.
Yeah, no, but anyway, I'm so excited to have you because I've seen the transformation. I think I met you what you were at Ford at the beginning, right?
I had worked at some different agencies prior to starting my own company in 2013, so that definitely helped me get that energy and that perspective to start my company. So yeah, we met before I had started.
Yes.
10.
Yes. And I loved it when you were modeling, and then you were the person at Ford who was in charge of the male models, right? Of recruiting
So I was on the women's board actually, and I'd started
and
I switched to being a model to a talent agent in 2008, and I'd actually worked on a men's board at a different company in town, and then at Ford I went to the women's board. So it was a nice juxtaposition, and I think that's really important for talent agents to kind of learn to represent all types of people. Yeah, because that's what we do now at 10.
Yes, you do so much. Let me ask you: was it in your family, your blood? How did you get it in your head to get into the fashion industry?
I love that question, and I'm from a really small town, and we were quite poor. So
What town? Where are you from?
I'm from a small town in Oregon. It's right in the Willamette Valley, and I realized at a young age how much I really was attracted to the idea of fashion. And I remember going in high school to applying to modeling agencies in my spare time in this small town to sort of think, could I be a model? And so I remember doing that as a young, 15, 16-year-old. And it wasn't until I was 18 in college, my freshman year, I was working at the mall in Eugene, Oregon. I went to school at University of Oregon, and I had a little part-time job in the mall. And I was scouted by my first agent. And I started.
You were?
Yeah,
okay.
I started modeling right in Portland. So Portland, Oregon was my first market. I'm still friends with all the agents. I work with the agencies still that were my agents back then. So I started, in college, just kind of part-time. So that's kind of how I got my feet wet. And it was fun because a lot of the clients I work with today were actually some of my first bookings, like Nike and Finish Line and all these really cool global advertising brands were some of my first bookings as a young model. So I remember that really clearly.
Oh my goodness.
Isn't that fun?
Did your parents encourage this, or?
They encouraged it. I don't think they understood it in that, for us, college was the most important.
Yes.
So I think
Yes.
like having to balance that, you know, doing your schoolwork and then getting jobs on the side. So I always remember being in college and being in the magazines and being in the Sunday papers. And I remember a funny story where I was in like the little local Sunday paper and I was in a little underwear ad and all my friends put it all around campus and I was so embarrassed. It was so funny just seeing that everywhere. But it was just a fun start for me. But I
Yes.
didn't get to Chicago until 2004 when I was working. I had a different type of job in real estate, my first job out of college in Portland. And I came to Chicago on a whim in the summer, and that's when I got stopped by an intern from Elite Models. I remember it so clearly. I was in front of the old H&M on Michigan Avenue, and their old office was on Huron, and I went in and got a contract, and I thought it was so cool at 24, so I went back home, packed my bags. I said, screw you, everybody. I'm moving to Chicago to start modeling, and that's kind of what I did, and I moved here at 24 without knowing one person.
And then you just did it.
I just did it. So I really think about how important being naive is sometimes to make those big jumps. Meaning
that's a major jump, like, for you.
Well, I didn't know anybody. I didn't know the city. I just found my apartment on Craigslist, and I just moved here, packed my bags, and I actually didn't work for a full year as a model, as a new face.
Okay.
So I always tell that to new models now, like, it is not easy. You have to really hustle. You have to really meet people. You have to network. You have to work on your portfolio, and it takes time. And I remember that so clearly when I started working. I said, oh, this makes sense now. Like, you know, all that work to get there.
You have to build it all up.
To really
and that's
build
what you
it.
encourage people to do now. And now there's the social media aspect of it, which before wasn't as big of a part, right? So, I mean, do you look at social media a lot also when you're looking at candidates now?
I do, and I think about, to take a step back, when I started modeling in 2000, or, you know, in 1998, you know, there wasn't internet. So as a model, you weren't able to compare yourself so quickly to maybe market or other agencies or other models. And so the only way you knew you were being successful is if you were getting booked. And so you had to have that great relationship with your agent. You had to really stand out. You had to find that voice for yourself. And you had to make an impression in the room on a casting. Now, the first thing a client does, when I say client, it's people who book the models and talent. Even though a model might have a full portfolio of gorgeous images, it's really the social media that they look at first.
Yeah.
And why do you think that is? Why do you think that is?
Well, because it reaches so many people, and it's a great way to market yourself and, you know, expand your brand really quickly.
But I look at it more of who are you and what do you stand for,
Your brand.
and what's your brand elements and what do you look like right now. So I do look at that. I think it's different if someone's trying to be an influencer and have a career influencing, which is paid partnerships with brands. That's different than just posting. So you kind of have to develop that voice.
Yeah.
And we have a full roster at 10 Management and an agent two agents that manage global deals. So we have a roster of about 50 talent that we book for global ad campaigns, and it's quite significant, and that's a real growth for us in the last couple years, and something I think this economy will continue to support. So I feel like we've really been able to differentiate ourselves from other agencies that way.
That's really good. I think because people don't realize how much money there is and how many products that there are. You know, I mean, I see it with mine.
Yeah.
You know, and we're getting a lot of different offers.
Oh, good. That's exciting.
Which has been very exciting.
Yeah.
Obviously, there's work that you have to do. You know, I didn't expect it because sometimes you have to look through so much. But understanding and having somebody to manage that is like really critical because you spend all day. You can spend all day.
Yeah,
and choose wrong things. You know.
That's
sometimes.
true, and I think ultimately clients are wanting an ROI, and what I love about being an agent is the breadth of the negotiation and I don't think that's something of being an agent for over 17 years. I think we are such skilled negotiators, and that's something of the job that I don't think people understand.
Yes.
That is so radical, and that you have to really tear apart what a client's asking of you, because one, that's our job, but then also you really have to understand the usage and everything that they're asking of. So at the agency, we really work hard at that stage of negotiation, and I think that's the point of an agent, where people that manage themselves may not understand the full breadth of the ecosystem that the agency operates in, and the amount of clients that we're dealing with at every location. It could be London, LA, New York. I mean, the client could be anywhere. Even though we're in Chicago, we really book all over the nation.
Yes,
we book, these massive deals, these massive clients, and that's exciting to me. And I think when I started the company in 2013, the hardest part about scaling, and you can understand this, scaling is the most difficult thing in an entrepreneur, because one, I believe tortoise wins the race, and
100%.
Exactly.
Yes,
and I always
yes.
thought of this space. I'm a person that sort of works backwards, meaning I have this idea and I'm about 10 steps ahead of myself to get there. So when I started the company in 2013, I'm really thought about where I'm at today. And even with all the failures and all the good stuff and the bad stuff, I still thought about this space of where the scale is at today. And it takes years to get there. So I always had that vision of what I wanted it to look like, even though I may not have understood it at the time. And I would love to talk about that a little bit more, and I'm sure we will.
You know what? I think that is so critical. We actually... Some people call it manifestation.
Yes.
Some people call it visualization, whatever. But I know that one of the key things for me is that you do have to think about, visualize what you want in your future. And do you write it down as well? Are you one of these individuals that does that? Or do you use pictures? Or what do you use to think about it? I use a little bit of all of it. But to me, in all the businesses that I have, I try to be very strategic about it, and the same thing, kind of look out 5 to 10 years. And it's my tech company, for example, completely changed from the way I started it. It went from us looking at smaller tech type projects to now I have engineers that are some of the best that are out there, and they're handling huge projects for large institutions.
Wow.
And I thought about that. I went through a point in my life where that business almost went bankrupt because I put so much on one client and one big
you
contract.
can't do that.
And
I've made that mistake before.
Yeah.
And
so tell me what is your process? I want to hear this process.
I think to reflect and rewind, I was a political science major and a public policy minor, so I never took a business class. My brother is a CEO or CFO. He went to training. I didn't. So part of an entrepreneurial process is actually to understand kind of the business, the analytical side. And I'm more of a creative. I'm very smart, but I'm more of a creative in the way I think. And so part of my process in the beginning in early 2013 was kind of putting the structure on paper. I didn't start with a business plan. That's not what we teach in academia. I started with my Rolodex and my hustle.
Who do I know?
Yes,
what do I
exactly.
know?
So, and that was enough to generate revenue. So I always say with young brands is create value from the beginning, and that will change over time. And so, because that's your job to grow that revenue. So what I did is, respectfully to self, I put myself in the teaching position. I started teaching at Columbia College as an adjunct instructor of entrepreneurship. So I've taught over 40-some credits, I think 43 credits of entrepreneurship.
How long have you been doing that
class.
now? You've been doing that for a while.
I don't teach in the present moment, but I've taught for 8 years at night. And I did it to learn while I was teaching, because then I had access to all the materials. And
smart.
In my early, it was around 2016, I started to fail in every way. And I was really young, I was really small, I wasn't generating the revenue that I have today. And I maybe have had 1 or 2 employees, and I started to fail, meaning I couldn't understand how to address all these system issues. And so I applied to a small business association incubator. It was led by the government for 20 Chicago companies. It was a 7-month incubator program called the Emerging Leaders Program. And that was the first time that I really took a class.
Was that the Chicago one?
It was.
Okay, I did that one.
Yeah, it's an incredible program, and I hope with
program.
this administration they continue it, because it's really a vital tool to help businesses succeed. And it was the first time I put a 3-year growth plan on paper.
Okay.
And the question that it asks of your business is, where is your industry in 3 years, and how are you going to meet that idea, and then how are you going to kill your competitor? And I love that question because you can't rely on strictly an emotional thought. You have to dive into the analytics. And that was really important to me. So that was the first time that I ever put something on paper in a business plan. And we call that more of a growth plan. I then repeated that process with a different organization called Founders First, which is a nonprofit, in 2023, where I then
Recently.
redid
Okay.
a growth plan.
Okay.
And I'm not living by it verbatim, but what it needs to do is create a roadmap for self, where then I articulate to the organization, the staff. I'm taking a step back in 2017. I use that to hire correctly. And the
Because it is so much about your team. Yeah.
oh my gosh,
Yeah.
it
People
really
forget
is.
That. People forget that though. Yeah.
And if you hire wrong, it will take I have 5 employees. I don't have hundreds of employees. We have hundreds of talent, but we don't have hundreds of employees. So if you hire wrong, it could be an incredible expense and a setback to the organization. You actually take a step back.
Yes.
You can't grow.
Right.
And
And the time that you took to train those individuals is also
cost, money,
yes.
So, this was the first time I ever put up the growth plan. And I believe in my heart of hearts, I would be failed, no longer here today, if I hadn't done that work. And I think that's something young entrepreneurs have to understand, is the amount of work you have to do every second of the day to, there is no such thing as a day off.
100%.
And even on your day off, you're working. And so
We're actually recording on
Yeah.
a Sunday, people.
and I love this paradigm, because I would say 3 or 4 years ago, me would really be upset about working on my day off or working at night. Now I enjoy it.
Yeah.
Because I don't feel like work. I'm like, well, even if I work for an hour today, that's great. Even if I take a holiday, I work every day for an hour on my emails.
The way I feel about it is, and if we're out and about or whatever we're doing, we're always on, right? But we're
Yes.
moving it forward. I love it because it's a way to move your life forward. And in many instances, we're moving a lot of other people's lives forward. And
We
that's
really
what
are.
a wonderful thing to be able to do.
That's something that I really hold so dearly in my heart, is how important a yes has been in my life, and the people that have given me a yes. And in academia training, and I train my staff this way, if you stop on the first no, you will never get a yes. It takes 8 yeses or 8 no's to get a yes. So as an agent, I will negotiate and I won't accept a no from a client until about 4 or 5 times in. I will respin it, I will ask, I will pick up the phone.
Respin it. I like that.
And you have to reframe it, because that's your
Yes,
job.
yes.
But it shows the amount of dedication it takes and time. Meaning, I have clients that, I'm thinking about bookings. I have clients that maybe takes a couple years to get that booking, and a model doesn't ever understand that. And so when I look for people at the agency to sign, and you asked, sort of touched on that question earlier, it's who is professional enough to last.
Okay.
And just because you have a pretty face doesn't mean you will last. And so for us at the agency, and part of my growth planning in 2017 when I took that class, I actually had to redefine 2 important questions to self. What is the customer profile of who's booking my talent? And what's the new talent profile? I had to articulate every sort of psychological, emotional, revenue. I had to put it all on paper to identify the right person I'm going to sign. And I actually think we're kind of there again. And I was having this conversation with my staff on Friday. We're continuing it tomorrow during our sales meeting, which is, I think we need to redraft a character profile of who we are signing now. Because when you have issues, you have to address them and almost reassess. So I really do look at...
Can you share with us 3 or 4 of those key points that you're looking for now?
So on a client side, again, I say client is a revenue. So in 2017, when I was saying, okay, I want to grow revenue, well, that's the easiest thing an entrepreneur can say. Right. Oh, I want higher revenue. Well, what does that mean? So I actually had to articulate and find out on the life cycle. So there's 5 life cycles in an entrepreneurial life cycle. And I wanted to find a regional client that could support multiple lines of models at the same time, multiple people on sets, that could come to us and book almost everything at once, that can pay their bill with, I'm going to say that closer, that can pay their bill within 30 days.
Well, because I got to tell you, on the revenue,
yeah.
I always market revenue profit.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah. Well, and then also isn't on the downward life cycle like a Sears. So I wasn't going to focus on clients that might be declining. And right now we are seeing through technology, now tariffs, a lot of clients will be, moving to that cycle. Yes. So for us, it's really important to accept a client that is of a certain structure. Otherwise, I say no. Or I quote so high to make it so painful that they say yes or say no. The next one on the model side is someone that obviously has a look that I can book, and I know within about half a second if I meet somebody if they're going to work or not. Yeah. And that's probably my favorite superhuman power as an agent, is being able to read that quickly. So one, can they actually work? Do I have a client for them? And then also, who are they? I think one thing people miss so much is letting us in, being vulnerable. We are a small company. I'm also human. We're all human. I want to get to know you just as much as you get to know me. If I don't know who you are, I can't sell you. And
do you find that some of them, it's difficult to get in?
Oh,
to get close?
It's so hard. Okay. And I think I learned this about myself, and I remember it so clearly. I was working in New York in my young 20s. I was really successful, making good money, and I really had to look at myself and go, wait a second, who am I? I'm showing up as a fake person. I'm showing up as what I think I should be. So once I started showing up as a talent, as a model, in front of clients, just being myself, I started to book more, because I wasn't putting this fake layer on, like, oh, I have to be perfect, or I have to do this.
Your humanity came through.
So, I'm not in New York, I'm not in Paris, I'm not in London, I'm in Chicago. We're very wholesome, we're very, clients love to get to know the talent. So very quickly, you have to let somebody know who you are. And so I always tell people that is the second you walk in the room, we're watching you. How's your posture? How's your energy? How are you engaging the front desk person? Those are all things that tell us who you are. And it's your job as a talent. If you come in the room in 1 second and walk out in 1 second, I should have some identity around you. And so people that have that, sometimes it's more in like native, more intuitive to the person. People that are shy, unprofessional, even if they're 1 minute late, I won't sign them. And I'll give you an example. I had a Zoom meeting with a prospective talent on Wednesday. They were 3 minutes late to the call. I hung up. They emailed me to reschedule. I said, I'm so sorry, this does not work for me. You're late. I can't sell you.
Listen to this, please, people.
If you are 1 minute late, that
is so important. And I see that so often.
Oh, it's my biggest pet
peeve. That it's okay to be. They come in 5, 10, 15 minutes late, and it's like, well,
nope.
And then it's constant, and you're like, no, this is a problem. This is a major problem.
So let me tell you,
business-wise, it's a major problem.
I will always be early. I will always be 10 to 15 minutes early, and if I'm late, I tell my friends something's wrong. Call me.
Yeah.
Because I'm never late. And the story I laugh about is I will tell models this when they complain, oh, I'm a minute late to my job. I said, you know what? In 2007, I flew to Hong Kong for a job. I was with an agency. I got on a plane, flew, 20 hours? Didn't sleep, had to go to the agency upon landing, meet the team. They sent me on 4 castings. I was an hour early to a foreign country. I had to get on a bus, a train, and I booked the job. And you're telling me you're a minute late?
Yeah.
No, that's not going to work for me. So if somebody gives me an excuse, I can understand if it's one time. But I actually drop people now with one mistake.
Really?
I used to have a rule, 3 strikes you're out. That was taught by my old boss. Now it's one strike, you're out.
One strike. Tough. See? Listen
One
to
strike.
this.
Because it's, and the way I mirror it back to them is, I'm your agent. Do you want me to show up late? What if I forgot to email the client on your behalf? What if I was late? How would you like that? So if you're late, I can't trust you.
But when you're initially interviewing people, do you tell them that? Or do they know that? Like, now you know that.
I do.
There's no
I
excuse
actually
to
do.
watch this. So, okay.
I do. And you can read the signs pretty quickly. You know, if you're getting a million emails about one meeting, if they show up 2 minutes late and they're all frazzled, it's just not going to work for me. And I used to be really
It's called being professional.
patient about that. Now I'm
yeah.
not. Because I know what's going to happen. I never believed this thought, or Oprah says this, and it took me a while to really understand that for my business, is believe the person the first time. So if they show up or they are acting funny or if they're doing something, instead of me thinking they'll change, no, they're going to be like that for the whole time.
You know, there's a saying, and it is so true, that the way you are now is the way you always are. And that's it. And that's the truth. You know, because people will go, no, it was just that one time. But usually that's not the case.
Yeah.
The way they are, the way you are with people is really the way you are all the time, now and all the time. So being late, being untruthful, being whatever, right?
It won't serve you.
Yeah. No, so you've got to transform yourself if you want to be this other person. And I'm so happy that you're saying this, because I think it's so very, very
And
important.
I hope everyone's listening.
Yes, because I think a lot of people think it's just their looks.
No.
Right?
It's actually completely the opposite. We're in a business where everyone has a look. So you have
There's
to...
a lot of beautiful people out there.
So what's more of you?
Yes.
And I think that's what a client, a casting director, a producer, an agent wants to know is, you know, what else is there behind you? What are your interests? What are your skills? What are your hobbies? Do you have a passion? Do you volunteer? What is your ecosystem? And what I love about that is once you let us in, there's an opportunity awaiting for you. So we ask and get to know our talent in hopefully, you know, as much as we can, because clients ask us the funniest questions. And we need to understand, when I say funny, it's very unique questions like, hey, I need a talent that does this or has this interest or this or this. So if I don't know that, you missed out.
Oh, wow. So you really go in depth with them, trying to find out different things. I like that, though. I mean, who they are for real, right? Not just what you see on YouTube or on Instagram or TikTok. So, but that does play a part too. So
it does. Yeah, the package counts.
Yeah.
And I think the point of it is there shouldn't be a conflict of self between what you're advertising in your social medias and who you are in person. And if there is, I don't know if someone has as much success and I'm going to say longevity. I don't think they have a longevity because
you're looking for that. You're looking for that longevity because you're going to invest time and energy and money also into these. Okay.
Yep.
All right. So the longevity factor is really important. I want to ask you. So, I mean, you were doing well in your career and everything else. Why did you decide to become an entrepreneur? And have you gotten out of that what you initially expected?
Ooh. Entrepreneurship was never something I thought of.
Okay.
And it was because of failure that prompted me to think of this pathway for self. And I experienced failure in a past job. I was let go. There was about 150 employees let go, or 100 employees let go one day at the whole organization, and I was just one of the many on the chopping block. And I didn't know what to do. And I was about 32 years old, and I just looked in the mirror and goes, what the hell do I do now? I couldn't find a job because agents are so unique. We're a travel agent, we're a psychologist, we're a creative director, we're a producer, we're an attorney. We do all these things.
Yeah.
So I just said, you know what, David, I really care about my point of view and how I handle talent and how I believe in talent. And I wasn't seeing that always in full where I had previously been. So I knew I had a wedge. I knew I had like a little sliver to enter. And that little sliver, that idea of curiosity opened that door for me. I didn't start with any money. I actually started with negative money. And there was no money to start. And so I started my company just with
how did you
hustle.
Yeah?
Yeah.
You said you looked through your contacts and then...
Yeah.
And then you made money, or did you get people to invest? How did that work?
No, I had zero money. But I will say...
But you had a dream.
Yeah.
There was something you wanted to get out of it. So do you feel you've achieved that now?
I think about that question a lot because that word success is difficult for me, and I don't use difficult in a negative term. Success is different for everybody. And my version of success is just being able to live my life in full, and I provide for myself. I do that now. And I'm not motivated by money, which I don't need. I want $1 million, but I don't need, I'm good. So for me,
you live a good life.
Yeah, I love my life.
Yeah.
So it's like
You live
being
a
able
great
to
life,
experience that in full because I'm working in something that I deeply care about.
Yes.
And so when I started, it didn't hit the revenue. It took me about 7 years to hit the revenue where we're at today. So I had to be patient. Oftentimes I wasn't paying myself. I was paying my employee. So I had to have a part-time job. I had to work on the side. I had to do things that maybe I didn't necessarily want to, but I had to make,
And the truth is, I think, a lot of people need to know this, and I deal with a lot of entrepreneurs now as well, trying to help as much as possible. I'm a couple of boards that do that, is that a lot of people do that.
Mm-hmm.
Not everybody has a huge investment,
No.
of money that comes in. You have a vision, you have a dream, and you have to work kind of another job until you make it. But then once you get on that, it's so exciting, and you start
really
seeing
is.
it blossom.
And I have one friend who was really the only person that decided to say yes to me. And I was in about year 1.5. He is a very successful VC, self-made VC person, and I really look up to him because of his beautiful world that he's created for himself. And he pulled me aside one day and said, "David, I'm going to give you $10,000. You have to pay it back with interest over 2 years, but I really believe in you. I want to just help you."
That's great.
And I get emotional thinking about it because I didn't have a pot to piss in. $10,000 was like, holy crap.
And $10,000 is a lot of money.
At the time. And
it still is a lot of money.
It's a lot of money now. I'm referencing the fact that
Then
somebody of that nature
believed
pulled me aside and believed in me.
Yes.
And I didn't have access to capital in traditional banking, like lines of credit and banks that I have now. That was not available to me then. And I was able to buy my first computer. I was able to buy little things that seem so normal now. And I paid him back. And without hesitation, without delay, I never missed a payment. And he pulled me aside at an event recently and said, "David, I'm so proud of you. I knew you would be successful and continue to be successful because how you cared for my money.
Yes.
You never missed a beat. You were always on it, and I will always support you because I know how you have cared for me." And I started crying when he told me that because I said, you're a zillionaire for you to just give me something small like that. And I remember so clearly.
And the belief.
Oh
the
my
belief
gosh.
in you, right?
I mean, I didn't have a pot to piss in. So like that helped me just create some systems. I think I invested in some marketing, a website. I bought a computer. I used to do my own website. I would stay up all night and just, people don't understand you have to do everything.
I did my first one.
I know.
I remember.
So I remember with the first booking, this would have been maybe 2016 when I hit my first invoice of 10,000. Now I see that almost daily. So I always have to reflect like, wow, scale is so important because you will get there.
Yes.
And I feel so happy that if somebody like that did say yes. And I love finding those mentors in entrepreneurship because we need to be able to see success.
I want to ask you, because you're a talent agent, you're, all these things, and how do you seek out who you want to be those individuals that are around you on a personal level?
Ooh. Oh, that brings a lot of joy and sadness, because I have had to say goodbye to a lot of people that aren't healthy for me. If somebody has any...
I've had that happen in the last 2 years. I've had to really...
It's tough.
Yeah, and it's very tough. Breaks your heart.
It breaks...
Yeah.
And it could be... So, I want somebody to lift me up. I want somebody to support me. I want somebody to challenge me. I don't want to be surrounded by people that say yes to everything I say. I love... That's, I think, the importance about my team. I don't say my team. I say people that I employ. They're not mine. I don't own them. So I want the people that I employ to question what I'm saying, but also understand our vision. So we're not fighting to get to the same spot, but I need people to push me as much as I push them. And that's hard to do.
What about, though, as your friends and colleagues? Like, do you keep a small group? Do you... how do you choose that? How do you decide that?
Well, don't you think...
Because you and I are around so many people, right? I mean, we're very active and we're around so many people. We get to meet so many wonderful people. But what about those that you choose as your friends? I'm going to say something that might surprise you. Okay.
I'm probably a bigger introvert than I am an extrovert.
I am the same way.
I'm just really good at being an extrovert.
I am too.
So
actually.
When I say that to people, they're like, "You're a quiet person?" I said, "Oh yeah, I can't do the exterior without quiet."
Yeah.
So when I'm in my personal space, I really like people that like to have fun. They enjoy. It's not a lot of drama. They support me. I support them.
Peace is undervalued. I always say peace is undervalued.
But I also like people that are curious. I'm a very curious, and I will always experience my life. So I don't want somebody just sitting by the wayside. I want somebody that's really active in their lives, and they're almost like a yes person. That's what I look for.
Okay, and you have fun. I mean, I know that you're looking for fun in your life. You're doing more traveling now. And you are curious, which I love that about you. I would love that about you.
Thank you.
One of the big things also that you are transforming your brand. You've transformed your own brand in the last couple of years, which I love, because you have a style about you, and I want to talk a little bit about that. But you're the face now of 900 North Michigan. I was telling you, Nikki, my executive assistant, and I were on the elevator. We're coming back from an event, and we start screaming because we see your face there with a young boy. I think.
It's a big 2-year campaign, and for those maybe not in Chicago, 900 North is the premier shopping center at the heart of Michigan Avenue. A lot of gorgeous shops, Bloomingdale's, Gucci's.
We love it there.
And that it was a very organic nature. But I think when you say about my brand, I think one of the things I get challenged with in being an entrepreneur is staying in one personal lane. I don't want to be always in a box, and I look for opportunities that will hopefully expand my curiosity in my own experience within the arts. And I think the best thing...
That's why.
That's why I'm here.
That's why I'm doing Chic Innovator.
Exactly.
I think it's so important to
because
do that.
there isn't one specific pathway in our world,
Yeah.
and I think we have the flexibility to explore that.
And aren't we blessed to be
Oh
able
my
to?
gosh.
I mean, thankful every day.
Amazing.
So are we going to see more of you? Because I've seen you out there more. So
I think you will. And I think one of the things I'm doing, I take a class next week. I'm going to do stand-up. I want to do things that challenge myself and change my narrative. And so I'm going to try things just as much as...
You're going to take classes?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I took some comedy classes during COVID online.
How was it?
It was fun. I tend to come off initially a little quiet, so the friends that recommended, they were on there, and then they were like shocked because I get really into whatever I'm doing, and they were like, "Oh my God, you were really good." I don't know that I'd continue to do that, but I know I can do it, and it's so much fun. It kind of takes you out because you have to ad lib so much and everything, and I love that. All right, if you perform,
I will let you guys know.
I don't know. We will be there. We will be there. Let me go back because
Sure.
one of the things I want to say, and I just had this conversation with a designer.
Okay.
And the conversation was, if you're a creative and in the fashion world, you have to just be the creative side. You can't think of the other side,
No.
the more analytical and strategic and everything. But the discussion we just had
It was very analytical.
is very analytical. And to me, the more that you're able to, you can't do both, but understand both and guide both. And sometimes you do need a CFO
Yeah, sure.
to come in,
I
right?
pay people lots
Yes.
of money now to do all my numbers and books. And
But that vision for where you want to take it, you have to be involved.
you have to be involved.
You know, and
you
so
can't.
I was so happy to hear you say that because
Oh, good.
it verified something I feel very strongly about, that we can't limit ourselves.
We can, and I think one of the things I would love to add to this is to operate at a high level. Something I've learned in entrepreneurship is I've had to relearn myself. And I do therapy every week. I've had the same therapist for 12 years now. As someone who grew up really poor, I say that with respect. It's not a bad thing. I had to relearn my relationship with money so I could have revenue. I had to relearn myself in a spiritual, emotional, and a physical way to be able to operate at a high level.
Yes.
And I don't think people talk about that enough in entrepreneurship, especially in the arts, is I always say I'm using arts to operate at my highest self. And I get to do that. Other people maybe are a doctor, an attorney, or whatever. I'm using the arts to operate and explore all themes of myself. And I always tell the talent to do the same. Because if you're not a citizen of the world or absorbing the world, you can't show up and represent something. So I really have done a lot of work. You know, I meditate every day. I meditated before I came here.
Me too. Me too.
And so you have to almost work on yourself.
Constantly.
Because I am triggered as a boss and an agent. I am triggered probably 100 times a day. Sometimes it's a trigger on a trigger on a trigger. And sometimes I can't get out of it. So you have to learn yourself.
We love people, but people will do that. I mean, that is the truth.
So I always say, you have to really work on yourself.
Yes. Constantly, especially if you own your own business.
Yeah.
And I think especially if you want it to grow, you have to. I constantly work on myself too. I'm gonna do this podcast. One of the podcasts that I did, one of the episodes was about rewiring your brain.
Ooh,
and then
that's good.
am going to talk about the energy of money and abundance.
Yes.
Because here's the thing, you can make it, but a lot of times people lose it because they're not prepared to sustain and continue to grow.
Yeah.
So that, because it's a scary thing for a lot of people. And if you don't take care of your foundation first,
then you can't grow.
Then you can't grow. So I love that you're saying that.
Oh, good.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And we expect to see a lot more of David out there.
Yes.
I'm so proud of you.
Thank you.
And please consider me in the inner circle because
of
I
course
love you very much.
are.
All right, great. No, I think you're.
I look to you for so much inspiration.
Yeah, well, we're going to continue to work together. October 18th,
yes,
by the way, is
the
Runway
next.
Latinx. Yes, so we're going to be using some of the models as well. We love your models. You do, such a great job all around.
I appreciate
and congratulations on the growth of your business.
I appreciate that.
I love that.
I'm excited just to see what the next 10 years is like.
Yes, it's going to be great. Thank you. Thanks for watching Chic Innovator. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. It's free.